Hello and welcome to Rosie's Preserving School. I've got masses of things on my table to talk about, but we're going to be making today Mostarda di Frutta, which is one of my favourite things to make. Absolutely, it's just like nothing else that you make in preserving, and that's what I love about doing these classes, because everybody says to me, "Oh, are you the lady who makes jam?" I've never made jam, and that's fine, I get that. But actually preserving is so much more than that. And this really, I think, is one of those things on the edge that is a total surprise to everybody that eats it for the first time. But we'll go on to that in a moment. I'll get rid of these first. I'm busy constructing recipes and cooking for next season's classes next year, the workshops next year, throughout the year. So I'm now making the recipes up for this time next year so that they can be photographed and you can actually see what you're going to be doing. So I've got these that have arrived, which are quince, which aren't a huge favourite of mine, but I'm hoping to convert myself. I'm not very good with things that taste sort of perfumey, really, like elderflower and things like that. But you have to admit, these are fantastic fruit, absolutely incredible. And they're very sort of, I expect you can see, they're very sort of waxy skinned and they smell amazing. So I'm going to be making some things with this over the next sort of couple of weeks that will be appearing next year. What I have to remember, though, is to keep one or two of the fresh quince back for the photography, because we always have the sort of recipe made and then some of the ingredients. I did that with the plum chutney and I saved 3 plums and then absent-mindedly ate 2 of them. So I only took the photographer 1 plum, which she wasn't very pleased with. She's going to get some more. Anyway, that's the quince. I'll put those out of the way now. They're jolly heavy. And then the other thing I've got, I talked to you when we did the candy peel, I wanted some different citrus fruits and I was trying to get pomelo, and they have arrived. And I must admit, they aren't what I thought they would be. I thought they'd be much bigger. But they're sort of, they look like a lime. I have no idea what they're like inside. But watch this space. I'll be candying the peel. And I'll see what the fruit is like as to whether I eat it fresh or whether it needs something doing with it. I'm not quite sure. So that's a voyage of discovery. What I have been looking for, and I haven't seen since I was a child, which is ugly fruit, UGLI, and you just never see them, and they're like a big grapefruit, but very thick-skinned and sort of like an orange inside, huge segments, as sweet as an orange. And I would love to candy some of that peel, but I haven't found the ugly fruit yet, so I'll keep looking. Brenda's asking if I've ever cooked with medlars. I have a very unhappy career with medlars, Brenda, because I was told, I'd never seen a medlar till about 10 years ago, and then my little shop where we're based, people kept bringing in trays of them about this time every year because they were sick of dealing with them. And I read up about it all, and it said you have to blet them. They almost have to be rotten before you open them up and use the flesh. Well, I tried making jelly, I tried making jam, and it was just vile. And in the end, I started refusing them from well-meaning donors because I just thought it's just not worth all the effort. But then I was on Facebook, I think, or Twitter the other day, and somebody was talking about this beautiful, clear, ruby red jelly she'd made with medlars. And I said, all I get is a sort of sludge, you know. And she said, oh, you can't make jelly when they're bletted. You have to do it when they're underripe. So that was the problem solved. So I might have another go. I haven't actually managed to eat any yet. So over all these years, it's quite shameful, really. Move the pomelo out of the way. So we're going to make the mostarda tonight. Oh, the other thing I had to tell you was we've got our vinegar in. You know, I said that we were getting vinegar onto Love Jars, a new range, and this is British made vinegar, and it's less than half the price of the vinegars we've been able to get previously. I think there's 5 different types. There's a malt vinegar and a spice malt vinegar, a distilled malt vinegar, an English cider vinegar, and a red and white wine vinegar. So that might be 6 types, I'm not sure. Anyway, they're on the website. They haven't got photographs yet, they're so new, but this is they in the 5-litre plastic bottles, and you can order that online and get all the different types you like very economically. And finally, this week, what I've been doing for us is making casseroles. They are in the, I pressure can them in the parfait jars, so they're all going away for the winter. So now we'll get on to the mostarda. I hope you looked at the recipe and saw that you needed to mix the mustard powder with the water about an hour before you need it. Now, this is weird because this is the only powder I know that you can mix the powder into the water. You don't have to, you know, mix it in bit by bit like flour and start with the flour and then add the water or the milk or whatever. You just put the water in the jug and put in the mustard powder. It doesn't matter if it's got lumps in it, and you just mix it with a whisk. I haven't done anything special to it, and it's just absolutely fine. So that's there ready for when we need it. And we're going to start off with the vinegar, which is 600 ml. Now, I don't know why this recipe has red wine vinegar in it, because really it's a sort of yellow color, and but I've always done what the original recipe said. So I'm going to pour in my vinegar. 600 ml. There's about, I don't know, a little bit left. Oh, more than I thought, and the plastic top. And I'll put that into your pan. Already, I won't put quite all of it in. I'll see how it goes when I've added my fruit. And the sugar from the recipe is a light brown sugar. We don't want the dark muscovado. If demerara, you could probably get away with, as long as you make sure it's properly dissolved. And that is 230 grams of sugar. Oh, seconds out. There we are, about half that pack, which is right. And you can put the sugar into the vinegar, it could start sort of dissolving itself. I won't put the heat on just yet. And then we've got our fruits, all dried fruits. And this is why this is great to make at this time of year as well, because, you know, dried fruits, it doesn't matter when you make it. So I've got some lovely chopped apricots there, which are organic. You may remember I said last week, buy Whole Foods online. We put the link up. This is where I get my dried fruits from, and they are amazing. I'm not in on a commission or anything. I just love their products, and they're very quick at delivering. These are flame red raisins. So they are from the flame grapes, the red grapes that you get, and they're just gorgeous. The black, there's a few ones that I put in that was at the end of the raisin packet, but these black ones here are the flame red raisins, which are just delicious. I've got some natural burgundy glacé cherries. I'll open it so I can show you. No artificial colouring in there. they're just like we did the glacé fruits. They're just cooked in a sugar syrup, and then that preserves them. And they taste, they're delicious. Nothing like the sort of gloopy ones with the artificial colouring in. I'm going to put a few prunes in. These are French prunes. France is famous for its prunes and plums that they then make into prunes. So they're going in. And I forgot to order the figs, so I'm putting in what looks like ears, but they're pear halves. And I've been munching on those today, which are brilliant. We've got our homemade stem ginger in syrup, which is going in, and homemade apple slices. Don't worry if you haven't got this exact mix. This recipe is Italian. Every part of Italy has its own version of these things, and they wouldn't fret for a moment if they didn't have, you know, a particular thing. It's really just make up the weight. If you haven't got one of them, then just put a bit extra something else. Or like I'm doing, I've got the prunes and the pears making up for the figs that I forgot to order. I'm not fond of dried figs, to be honest, anyway. They're a bit gritty, aren't they? So anyway, that wasn't the reason, I just forgot. So make your own mixture, and you know, happy days. As I said, don't apologize. It'll all be good. So as I chop these, I'm going to put them in the pan. Well, actually, I better dissolve the sugar first, don't I? Let's get the heat on and do that, and then I can add the fruits to the pan as we go. I know it says take it off the heat to do that, but there's no reason why you can't just add it in. I'm just going to talk about the size of the fruit carrots in a minute. Same thing, dissolving sugar, you can hear it all scratchy and you can feel it with the spoon. Once it's all becomes smooth and quiet, you know you're there, you've dissolved everything. Now these apricots actually are a bit small. I bought them ready chopped, but actually if you've got the whole dried apricots, the soft ones that are ready to eat, just cut them into 4, cut them across and across the other way. Nearly there with the sugar. I'll show you with these ears, pears. So I use scissors actually, it's sort of easier to control it all. So you need them nice and chunky, which is good because you don't have to stand there chopping everything tiny, and it doesn't have to all be the same shape. Just chop it into roughly the same size, but not necessarily the same shape. Soon done. That's that one. Prunes here. It warned me there might be stones in these, which there are, which is annoying because they're supposed to be stoned. Try and get the stone out with the scissors. Oh. That's my knife. That's annoying actually, because I ate some of them and they didn't have stones in. Typically, I hope, unless I missed it. I might not put quite so many of these in as I thought. Right, let's see how our sugar's doing. There we are, nice and smooth and quiet, so I can put my apricots in. And I'll try a few more spoons. All right, so I'll leave it there, otherwise it's all going to take too long. I think the ready to eat ones are stoned, so if you get those, again, just do like the apricots, just cut them into 4. So those can go in. And the sultan, not sultanas, the raisins can go in. Oop. Stir. And then I've got these lovely cherries. Now I'm pretty sure they are stoned. So actually they're not huge. I'm going to put them in as is. Hold. And I'm going to guess how many that is. About half of these. I think I bought 500 grams. Definitely going to be buying some more. The other things I bought that I'm not putting in, I bought some cranberries, dried cranberries, but they were soaked in apple juice. So again, they're sort of ready to eat. And I haven't eaten any yet, but they looked lovely. So here's my apple rings. Again, I'm going to snip, depending on the size of them, 3 or 4 snips. It's just easier to cut them with the scissors. I have to be making some more of these, they're nearly gone. There's lots of mustard recipes on my recipe site, and we made some this year, just whole grain mustard, not cooked at all. We made a Dijon mustard that is cooked, and this is the sort of final variation as far as I'm concerned for mustards. Once you've made one whole grain mustard, you can follow any recipe for any of the others. The Dijon mustard is very simple to do, and this one It's nothing like either of those, but I hope that you'll find it as delicious as I do. Let's put the apple rings in. The decks a bit. Right. How are we? Are you? Oh, heating up. So Brenda's saying a friend has a medlar tree and would give me loads, but the bletting, as you said, just made me feel sick, so I haven't tried them. The jelly sounds interesting though. The jelly looked beautiful, and I just thought, how has she done that? But she's very kindly told me, and I wish I'd known years ago. So of our homemade or not preserved ginger, we're not going to need roughly 8 pieces. I mean, use what you've got, but I'm going to put 8 in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oops, 7, 8. It's that. So I would chop these a bit smaller. Nobody wants a huge piece of ginger in their mouth, I don't think. So you take a bit of time and just get them, again, evenly sized-ish. Don't have to be exact, but just cut it into, I don't even know what you'd call that really. If you like huge pieces of ginger to eat, then be my guest, but I think it's a bit of a shock if you do find. I remember going out for a Thai meal with my son, and he ordered, because I hadn't to that point eaten any Thai food, and he ordered for me, and it was some sort of ginger prawn dish, and the ginger was about that size, and I very innocently took a bite because I didn't know what it was actually at the time, and I was just sort of speechless for the rest of the meal. I just couldn't, the shock of it, it was incredible. Stir my apples in and getting into the mix. More to do. Times like this, I wish I could chop things like Jamie Oliver or somebody like that. we've done in a flash. Yes, Kara, so I heated the vinegar with the sugar, dissolved the sugar in the vinegar, and then added the fruit as soon as the sugar was dissolved. Right, that's all the ginger. So that's going to go in. Clean up. We go on. Oh, the salt as well. I'll put that in a second. I'll just wipe my mat so you don't get everything sticky. Stir in the ginger, and I'll put the salt in as well, which is 2 teaspoonfuls of sea salt going in there. All right, so I'm just going to turn it down a bit and cook just a few more minutes. Now this version, the Mostarda di Frutta, is made from dried fruits, as we've said. But there is a summer version that you can make where the Italians use fresh fruits, so peaches, pears, cherries, all the summer fruits, and they make a syrup with mustard oil in it. So when it's in the jar, you can see all the different fruits, and it's a wholly different thing to what we're making now. So they have a sort of summer version and a winter version that they make, but both would be made with probably homegrown fruits and home dried fruits, because obviously they do a lot of that kind of thing. So, but mustard oil is, I have got some mustard oil, and it is a very powerful thing. You have to be very careful with it. Mustard of itself is an incredible, well, spice, I suppose, but it can obviously have detrimental effects as well. So you have to be careful around the mustard oil. It can, you know, burn if you get it on your fingers, or then sort of rub your eyes and things like that. It's, you know, you don't want to be doing that. Now you might see, and I saw this on Jamie Oliver once. He had a bottle, a big tall bottle of mustard oil, and that, he said, oh, you can get it in supermarkets and so on. But that type of oil is an oil with the mustard oil mixed into it, which is for, it's like a muscle rub for sports people, you know, as a sort of embrocation. It's not for cooking with. And it does say that on the bottle, actually. They're a bottle about this big, and you use it if you sprained a muscle in your leg or something like that running. So you don't want to be using that. The actual mustard oil that you would use to make the syrup for the other type of Mostarda, it's got a different extension on the name. I can't remember what it is at the moment. Mostarda di, and then it's another name, but that's the fresh one. If you wanted to make that one, the mustard oil you need for cooking comes in a bottle like you buy essential oils, the little dark bottles that are about that big. And it is about £8 a bottle, and you only need a few drops of it. So don't be putting the embrocation into your preserves, please, whatever Jamie Oliver says. So I was slightly startled when I saw him doing that, but I suppose he's still there, isn't he? He's obviously all right, but it's not what it's meant for. I don't know what the carrier oil is in it, what you would be adding along with the mustard oil that's obviously dissolved into it. So let me get my heat mat ready. Don't worry if you're not if you only just stop chopping and you need to cook them on for a bit, that's fine. Just, you'll catch up. We haven't got any other questions, so that's all right. And the fruit now is softened, but it won't cook down like fresh fruit will. We don't want it to. We want this to be a really chunky preserve that really packs a punch. So I've got my mustard here mixed into my water. There's a nice sauce. Put that there. Lift down the pan into the table. On my heat mat. And then you're going to pour in this sort of mustard cream into the fruit. Immediately you get a mustard sort of waft of, and you stir that around and mix the fruit into the mustard sauce. Now, mustard seed, when it's ground like this to a powder, is like a flour. It's a starch. And as we know, all starches, when you cook them, expand and kind of explode and thicken things. So this goes back onto the heat. Let's turn it up again slightly. And we're going to cook it on until that happens. It won't be super thick, but it will be thicker. And as it cools in the jar, as I've said, many times, it will thicken even more. So don't worry if it's a bit runny when it goes into the jar. To be honest, you don't want it too thick, otherwise you won't get it into the jar. It's all too difficult. So you want it just like a thick cream. So the mustard has to develop because that's cold, so it's taking down the temperature. And this makes a super addition to a hamper. You probably need to put a bit of an explanation with it, but I'm sure whoever you give it to will be really, really grateful. Is it Coleman's mustard, Brenda? No, well, it could be. That's what but I buy it, I buy it in big sacks, wholesale, but you can probably get it again from buy Whole Foods online or a spice online company. But if not, then just use Coleman's. But it's probably a bit more expensive. It's easy to get though, it's not a difficult thing to find. I'll keep stirring and let some heat build up in that bit. Rachel, I didn't grind the seeds, no. I haven't got my flour mill stones here. It's almost impossible to grind mustard seed domestically, unless you've got, I know some people online, some of the people I interact with on Twitter, they do grow grains for bread and they do grind them themselves, and they could probably get away with it, but I certainly couldn't. Rachel's using up all the stocks of Coleman's, where she keeps buying a new tin, not realizing she hasn't used the old one, and that's absolutely fine. You know, it's a good thing to do. So it's starting to heat up. Now you don't want to heat this too madly, because like any flour, any starch based thing, it will stick to the bottom of the pan as soon as you look at it. So don't have it on too fierce a heat, she said, turning it down. And I can feel already this is thickened to what it was. I don't think it's quite there yet, because I'm cooling it. If I keep stirring it, I ought to leave it to, I can see the little bubbles just breaking on the surface, and it just smells amazing now. Agreed? It smells great. Right. In an ideal world, you will have your jars washed and warmed. Kind of washed, but not warmed, because, as I say, the noise of the oven would be, it would knock out the sound on the recording, but it's fine. I'm not going to break any jars or anything, but it's just nicer, I think, if you've got them warmed and ready to go. You can use clip top jars if you want to. I don't think you would need to water bath them to seal them. I think this keeps perfectly well without that. So now, as I think I told you before, I've taken this so many times to parties, or, you know, where everyone says, oh, bring a plate, you know. Well, I'm not really very good with that sort of thing, fiddling about with things, you know. So I just usually get a great big piece of cheese and some crackers and take some jars of this along, and it's a talking point for a start, but you always get people who won't try it until eventually they give in, because everyone's saying, you know, how amazing it is, and which I take no credit for. I mean, it's the Italians of me, and they give in, and then you find them later sort of in the kitchen, sort of scraping the jar out, trying to get the last little bit out. So people get converted to it very quickly, me included. So Rachel's saying, if I was writing a label with instructions, how would you recommend serving it? Just have it with a cold sort of buffet spread. Cheeses, it's ideal, you know, just have a cheese board with different cheeses. You could have salamis or ham or anything like that, that, you know, look to the Italians. What would they have? They'd have maybe pickled whole vegetables like artichokes and things like artichoke hearts, and tomatoes stuffed with things, anything savory. It's just delicious with. So you wouldn't really have it with a hot meal, but any kind of buffet or picnic, that kind of thing. Best to just sort of, if you're giving it as a gift, maybe put something with it that you think it would go with, you know, a nice piece of cheese or something like that. So we're getting there now, starting to thicken. I remember, as I don't know if I told you, when I had help in my kitchen at the shop premises, the lady there, I said to her, I found this recipe, you might like to try making it. And so she did, and I called in and she said, Oh, Mason, you must try it. It's delicious. I said, no, I don't really. And she, oh no, you must. And she went and got a glass of water and put it in front of me. She said, if you don't like it, she said, there's some water and everything, but I was just hooked. And that was just eating it out of the jar. I didn't have anything to eat with it because we didn't have anything. But I just could not believe the flavour of it. Right. So you can see it's quite a bit thicker than it was. And I'm going to leave it there because if I cook it on anymore, I know there's going to be a pan disaster. I really don't want it stuck to the bottom of the pan. So I'm going to turn it off and put it back on my heat mat. Move that. Now it's one of those things, it's a bit lumpy, so you have to be a bit careful jarring up to make sure that you don't leave air pockets and things like that. Excuse me, I'm gonna have a drink. I don't know why my voice has gone all croaky. Right, so I'm going to go through, because we've got Anne who's new tonight, so I'm just going to go through filling the jars again so that you know, we're all clear. So I use a funnel to save spillage. If you haven't got a funnel, a jam funnel, then just do it very, very carefully. I don't think you would gain anything by putting this into a jug, because it won't really pour that successfully. But I've got my funnel and I've got it up to the pan. I've got my ladle and I'm going to start. It does go in quite well. Don't use all the runny bit at the beginning and not have any for the end. Then using a spoon, just sort of poke it down the funnel to ease it into the jar. And you need it so that the contents of the jar are just proud of the spout of the funnel that's just come up into the cup there, because you need the jar filled right to the top. And as you can see, that just does that perfectly. Now you just need to check by going around the jar that there aren't too many air pockets. There's a couple there, look. So I'm going to use the point of my knife. Now I can't see them, but I'll try and poke them so that they disappear. And then check the other side, there's nothing there. You don't want air pockets in anything, but when it's a sort of thick mix like this, it's very difficult. It's very easy to get air pockets and you don't want those. Then put your lid on straight away and do it up just so that it's catching on the lugs. Don't keep screwing the lid around. Now, if you get that in a hamper, it's going to be quite intriguing, isn't it, as to what it is. But there we are, put it down, stop waving it around. And Trev can film it. So this is just the right consistency to actually drop into the jar without having to have too much encouragement. But I know by the time it's cooled down, it's going to be quite thick, which is good. If you haven't got it right to the top, like I haven't there, just grab another couple of bits of fruit and put them in until you can't get any more in. Check for air pockets. That's not too bad. You don't have to get every single little one out, but the science of it is that when you put the lid on, when something is hot, it will shrink as it cools, and it may leave a little gap at the top, but that will be a vacuum, because there's no air. You filled it right to the top, so there's no air. You put the lid on, and then it shrinks, forms a vacuum, holds the lid on tight, and nothing can grow to spoil the contents. So always fill right to the top, whatever you're making. Right. More jars. You jarring, Rachel? Good. Who else is making? Anyone else? Karis is, I think, but she's disappeared. Oh. Do one more and then I can do the rest in a minute. So don't worry if you haven't got the exact mix of fruit. Just use what you have or what you like. Don't hand it over saying, oh, it should have had this in it or that in it. Nobody will know. And it will all taste delicious anyway. As I said, go forward confidently. You know more than they do. So by the time it's all mixed up like that, who knows there aren't any figs in it, you know? You could put nuts in as well if you wanted to. I never think about it because I sometimes sell my things. I don't want all the aggravation of allergens and all the rest of it, so I don't put nuts in. But you could, if you're, you know, confident that it's fine for the recipient or for you, then if you wanted to add some chopped nuts, I think hazelnuts, walnuts or almonds maybe. Almonds would probably be more traditional for Italy, but whatever you like. I've never had it with nuts in, but I know that it is made with nuts sometimes, so can only taste great, can't it? There, I'm going to jar up the rest in a minute because it's not fascinating watching me do that. And I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. Bring on Boxing Day. Karis says I'm making but still adding fruit and ginger. Yeah, that's fine, Karis. Just, you know, cook on and jar it up. And Anna wants to know if she's using the jars with the clips like this, should I close them completely once I put the filling in? Yes, just clip it down. It should be fine. Normally I'd say, you know, if it was, you know, it may need water bathing, but I don't think you do with this. I'm sure I've put it into clip top jars before and it's fine. In that case, you wouldn't necessarily need to fill it right to the top because you haven't got the same sort of sealing system. So just fill it to where it's sensible and it should be grand. Now this benefits from being kept for 6 weeks, I'm sorry to say, Rachel. So you can, of course, try some straight away, but it really benefits from being kept. So it will be ideal for Boxing Day. It will be absolutely perfect by then, but you can always keep a jar that you keep testing. And so has anyone got any further questions? That's good. And next week we will be making Marjorie's mincemeat, which is it's a fatless mincemeat. It's got no butter or suet or anything like that, so it's suitable for vegans. It's based on this is my recipe based on Marjorie plums, the type of plum which is called Marjorie. It's not a person, but you can't always obviously get the exact plum. It just happened that year I'd been to an orchard and they were all Marjorie plums, and everything I had was Marjorie plums. So that's where it's come from. But it sounds like a sort of a nice old sort of grandma from a farmhouse or something, doesn't it? Marjorie's mincemeat. But you can use any plums, and especially frozen plums, actually, because the freezing actually breaks down some of the enzymes in the flesh of the plums, because what we've got to do is cook down the plums before we start making the mincemeat. Now, you could do that slightly ahead if you want to. Just chop up the plums. If they're frozen ones, you can cook them from frozen, but they need to be sort of cooked so they're as pulpy as possible, because they form the base of the mincemeat. Or you can cook them down and then you can either put them through a food processor, or less recommended is to put them through a sieve, because that's actually backbreaking. So I don't put them through a food processor if you've got one, and then we carry on from there. So you might like to start slightly ahead of the workshop next week doing the plum bit, because that will take a while to cook down and process, and then we can carry on adding the other ingredients and cooking it. I'll also try and get some of my butter-based mincemeat made, which I made in last year's Christmas classes, just to show you the difference. And the recipe for that is in the recipe site, recipes.rosiemakesjam.com. Recipes for both of them, actually. And you know, it's just horses for courses. I mean, it's suitable for vegans, the Marjorie's mincemeat, and it's a delicious mincemeat. It's, you know, it's not the poorer for not having butter or suet in it, and it tastes amazing. In fact, I've got some that's probably 3 or 4 years old that I have on my porridge in the morning. I'm still eating it, so it keeps absolutely fine, even though it hasn't got the sort of fat base. So you know, you might want to give it a go as a change from having the richer sort of mincemeats and so on. Again, you can add nuts to the mincemeat if you want to. The recipe doesn't specify nuts for the same reason as it doesn't specify it for this. But if you want to add nuts, you can. You could, you know, add all sorts of things in. I'll leave that up to you. But have a look at the recipe. It's on the website now, so you can download it and get the ingredients. And we've got some other people joining us from Switzerland, I think, and cooking along as well. So that'll be fun. So have a good week, and I hope you enjoy the Mostarda. I will be interested to hear, because I know Rachel will try it before next week, or her husband will, and I'll be interested to know what you think about it, and whether you think I'm sort of raving about nothing at all. So, okay, thank you for watching and joining in, and I'll see you next week.